everybody. Welcome back to the We the Dreamers podcast. I'm Kate Voegele, and this is my sister, Courtney Elliott. We're really excited to be here for another episode. We've been having so much fun having these conversations over video. We're two sisters who live on opposite coasts. I'm in LA, Courtney's in Manhattan, so it's so fun to see you every week now when we're recording these. It's like really been amazing.
I know, it's been awesome. I mean, we talk all the time, but I feel like we don't necessarily get to see each other's faces all the time. So it is definitely a treat.
It's such a treat. And like, I don't know if I have a couple of friends, not many, but who are like FaceTime people who like just bang out a FaceTime, who like call you, no text of like, when should we have a FaceTime hang, who just like, they just bang it out right then and there and call me randomly. And I'm so grateful for it because I am like way too socially awkward and introverted to be that friend. Like, because I'm terrified that I'm bugging someone in the middle of something important. And also I'm like too vain. I'm like, I have to, make sure that I have some concealer on before I get on FaceTime,
Same.
But I'm grateful that people do that because I'm like, oh my God, now I see you. So I feel like this is our way of doing that.
Yeah, no, I mean, if someone FaceTimes me, I automatically assume it's like an announcement of some sort. Like, I'm engaged, I'm pregnant, something like that. Not just like, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, okay,
Yes.
so I need to manage my expectations because some people just like to chat and see your face.
Yeah, 100%. I'm exactly with you. Like I can't even think of a time when I've just FaceTime someone out of the blue without first being like, let's put it on the calendar, which is such a like kind of a vibe kill, and because it makes it feel like corporate to have a friend catch up, but it truly anymore feels weird not to sort of schedule like a phone hang because you want to be like engaged, while you're talking. You don't want to be like, oh, I'm in the middle of doing something, but let me catch up, right?
Yes, yes. I like just being more intentional about the time and conversations. I mean, that's like how I prefer it. Like sometimes it makes me anxious if I just get like a random FaceTime, but some people just have those like relationships where it's like, oh, we just like randomly FaceTime each other multiple times a week. And I honestly have like never had like that's just not how my friendships operate, and I feel like it's a product of like me not doing that ever.
Sure. Yeah, same. Right. I think because I don't do that, people are like, oh, well, I don't know if Kate would want me to just like FaceTime. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I do want you to. I just feel bad because like the likelihood of it being a good time for us to both sit down and like do nothing but like chat is low because there's just so much shit going on in everybody's lives anymore. But it's like that's actually kind of a good segue into what today's episode is all about. It's about being engaged, about being intentional, and most of all, it's about the idea of romanticizing your life. So I don't know, like, for people listening, if you guys have heard this phrase or this idea everywhere lately as much as I have, but I feel like I cannot go on social media without seeing some sort of aesthetic, montage of beautiful images talking about how to romanticize your life or why you should romanticize your life. And we chose this subject, this conversation for this episode because a couple years back, Courtney, you actually wrote a really amazing blog post that got like a really great response about the idea of engaging with your life. And I sort of felt like this was related. So can you sum up sort of what the catalyst for that post was about and what like inspired you to write about engaging with your life in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this was at some point during the pandemic, maybe 2021. I was sitting on the couch after work, and out of nowhere, the thought popped into my head, I'm not engaging with my life. And I don't even know if I ever heard that, where I heard it. At least I don't remember hearing that. But all of a sudden, I just had this moment of clarity where I was like, I don't want this to be my status quo. I feel like I had just kind of not put a lot of effort into being intentional about how I spend my time, what I'm doing. And I think that really does go hand in hand with, romanticizing your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very much the same idea in a lot of ways. And I remember when you wrote this post being like, man, why aren't there more conversations around this idea of engaging with your life? Because I feel that way all the time. Like last episode we were talking about like, hobbies and how important it is to have these creative outlets to play and have fun as an adult, that aren't tied to our jobs necessarily, or where we're not on the hook to make a profit off of, these creative hobbies. And we talked about the idea of being intentional with our time and sort of thinking about like what we spend our time doing and, reflecting on that. And for some reason, it's something that I feel like there just isn't enough conversation around. And so it really like feels like a perfect setup to this conversation about engaging with your life, romanticizing your life. Like, I think everyone can relate to that idea of sometimes just being on autopilot without even realizing it, like without having any real. I don't think anybody wants to be on autopilot. Nobody's like, yep, I want to live my life on autopilot where I'm not really paying attention to anything. But we all
No.
do it like all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I felt like I at least I felt like for me that started for me more during like the height of the pandemic where like every day felt the same. And I feel like
Yeah.
even still sometimes it really can feel that way whether you have like a traditional 9 to 5 job or not. I feel like we can just get really stuck in our same routines and stop appreciating the little things and just start to think about what's next or fantasize about, some future thing that's going to happen. I feel like something I always think about is that 5 years ago, the life that I fantasized about and romanticized is like the life I'm living now. And I feel like I have to just really, it's kind of also about like being present. And I feel like that can be a really big
Yeah.
struggle to me because I'm always looking ahead for like what's next, the next goal I have. And so I feel like part of romanticizing is just like being in the moment, which is probably something we're going to touch on.
That is such a good point. Like, I feel like that idea is totally central to the idea of romanticizing your life, because I love what you said about how 5 years ago, the things that you were like fantasizing about and dreaming about and romanticizing, that is stuff that you're living now. Like, you made those things happen because you set goals, or you really set some intentions and you figured out how to make those happen. And then it seems like so often all the conversations are around goal setting and productivity and how to reach your goals, but then it's never about enjoying those things that you achieved or that life that you built for yourself once you get it, And I'm so guilty of that. Like, I cannot even express how much like I will work towards something and then I'll get it and then I will just find every possible way to self deprecate or, kind of like belittle myself or, like when I got this language diploma in French this year, it was probably one of the biggest like goals that I had set for myself in a long time. And it was so hard. It was so much work. And then I got it. And then I felt like I didn't even give myself the chance to sit in that and like romanticize, like, wow, I put in all this work and I made this happen. And this is something I was dreaming about last year. And now it's my reality. And like, I think romanticizing your life is about appreciating those little things, being in the moment, not just being on to the next future thing, whether that's like the next future goal that you have or the like anxiety about the future. Like, that's my thing is I'll be like, oh, cool. Yeah, now I got this. But now I need to worry about what's next,
Same. Same. I definitely operate the same way. Like we don't take time to even celebrate those little things which should be celebrated. And I think another aspect of romanticizing your life is celebrating the things that people don't typically celebrate, like little things like the cup of coffee you have in the morning or just taking time to notice, the animals in the park. Some things like that, which I feel like in this day and age of the internet and social media, we just don't necessarily take the time to do that. So I think that's definitely an aspect for me that I'm working on.
Yeah, I feel like my dog, and I bet you feel the same way about your little Frenchie, Gus, like Nola, since we got a dog, which it's only been 3 years, I've always wanted to get a dog sooner, but I traveled so much that, we couldn't. ever since I like got her, it really has forced me to notice little things and to slow down and be in the present more because like I have to walk her every day. Like I don't know if like
Yep.
our listeners know this. I don't think I've mentioned this before, but Nola refuses to pee in her yard. Like she will not pee in her own yard. And my husband and I are like, we are those millennials who bought a house for our dog and she doesn't even use the yard. So we have to take her for like several walks a day. And it's great though because she's extremely pokey with her walks. Like she has to stop and sniff every tiny corner and she cannot miss a spot. She's like a little investigator, but it's really good because it has really forced me to like notice what's blooming this season or just like notice that pretty color that my neighbors painted their front bench, like these small things that really I take a lot of delight in those things as someone who appreciates like color and nature and design, but I don't stop to notice them ever. So I feel like, do you feel that way with Gus and like walking him in New York? There's so much cool stuff, little things to appreciate, right?
Yeah, it's so funny because Gus is like the total opposite. He'll pee anywhere. Like he doesn't have a yard. We live in a building, an apartment building, so we have to leave to take him out every time. And like whenever I come visit LA and we're in a neighborhood, it's so funny when we take him for a walk because he'll just go outside and like pee on the concrete and just keep walking. And we have to like specifically find a patch of grass for Nola, and Gus will just go anywhere. And then it just like killed me when he was in your yard for the first time. It was like the coolest, most exciting thing he's ever experienced. So I can't wait for the day when I can buy a house for my dog.
Oh,
But
totally.
yes, it forces me to get out. It forces me to appreciate the little things. Even so, sometimes in New York, not everything is super fun to look at, like the rats and the roaches.
Sure.
But it does make me take the time to take in the city and observe people. And I feel like we can learn a lot from our dogs about romanticizing our lives, which is funny. But one thing I think of is just like I could be gone for 20 minutes, and when I come home, my dog Gus just like rushes into my arms and he's so excited to see me, and it makes me feel so good. And I'm like, I need to do that more with human beings and with other things in my life. Just like get excited about things, like
Yeah.
not manufacture excitement, but just like really appreciate the things you have.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. It's so true. Like dogs are so just content with, you know, Nola, if you give her a bone, she gets like a bone every day. And it's truly as if like she won the lottery every time, even though she gets one every day. And it's like really true how much it can be, I think there's just so many opportunities to give our brain like a dopamine fix in with social media, and the endless scroll and the feed is never out of stuff to look at, and so sometimes we turn to that instead of like noticing what's already here, instead of refreshing, thinking that, you always have to sort of refresh for something new in your feed or whatever. Like there's so much to appreciate that's just, and this isn't like a conversation knocking social media. Like I love going down a TikTok rabbit hole just as much as anyone else, but I think it's like the idea of like practicing gratitude, but sometimes I feel like that's one of those things that people say and you're kind of like, oh, okay, like be grateful, whatever, you know what I mean? But I feel like it really is, that's what that is just, dogs, they're just so grateful for like something that is fun for, and they're in the moment, they're like, they don't have anxiety about the future, you know
Yeah, I think this actually really speaks to our first point, which is, if we're discussing the actions we're taking to better engage with life or romanticize life, the first thing is go out of our way to notice things, even if it's the little things.
Yeah, that's I think that's number one. I think that all this like content that I'm seeing around romanticize your life, it's always like people being like, light candles, make a tea, put the tea in like a beautiful vintage mug that you bought, at your favorite flea market stall or whatever. And I think that, those are all kind of like surface aesthetic things, because I think it can be much more beyond that, like appreciating somebody's laugh. If you like made a friend having a beer at the airport when your flight got delayed, like, and they have like a really unique laugh, like noticing and appreciating that, like not in a creepy way, like, wow, I love your laugh, it's so interesting, but like, like I think that it's about that stuff too. And that really does increase your joy in life. Like, I feel like that really, just the act of acknowledging those little things, like, I bet you there's tons of psychological studies that say how much like that can improve your mood and that can improve your outlook on life and stuff. Like, do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the queen of like reading positivity books to try to learn how to be more positive because I feel like I am a little bit more predisposed to like not complaining or negativity because I wouldn't consider myself a negative person, but like I just do that at least more than like my husband who I spend the most time with, and I notice that about myself. And
Yeah.
so I mean I've read a bunch of books about like just the psychology of positivity, and obviously we're not talking about toxic positivity or sugarcoating things because it's really important to feel your feelings. But just like you said, having a gratitude practice, noticing the little things, celebrating every moment, and just trying to be present. I feel like that's probably the first thing um, that I can do to better romanticize life.
Yeah, and it's like being present when you go out of your way to notice what's happening in the present moment. I think it also becomes easier to like slow down a little bit, because that's the other thing that kind of goes with this point about noticing little things. Is like, it's a lot easier to notice little things when you're not trying to completely pack your day or your agenda, or you're like, I am the queen of like packing out a vacation, or I mean a suitcase, or like my day, or even like every single to-do list I've ever written for every day in the history of my life has always had too much shit on it. Like, it's always been overly ambitious to a ridiculous
Yeah.
degree. And so I think that there is this sense of romanticizing your life is also just like enjoying living life. And to do that, sometimes you really do need to, embrace things at a bit of a slower pace. Like, obviously, not always, but I think like that it's kind of a, European attitude, like when I lived in France, people take 3 hours to have lunch with their friends, and they split a bottle of wine. And I'm not saying you go get wasted at lunch and you don't ever go back to work, but like they get their work done. Like, they work hard, it's not like all they do is go on vacation. They just live their life at a slower pace, and maybe they sort of value different things. And so I think it comes down to like reassessing your values, and like, is noticing, acknowledging these little things a value of mine? And if I want it to be a value, then I should figure out how to make it one of my values.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Slowness is something I'm trying so hard to adopt in my daily life because I've never been one to slow down, but especially since living in New York City. I mean, the my walking pace since living here has increased in speed like tenfold. And it's like embarrassing when I'm around other people because I'm just like hauling ass and like trying to get around people. Like even like our dog, like he's always just like weaving in and out trying to get around people. It's like an obstacle course.
He's a New
And I'm
Yorker.
just
Yeah.
like, oh my God. Like I just need to take a deep breath, like relax my jaw, like breathe. And it's something I'm trying really hard to do because I can feel it in my body. I think that when you do slow down, you innately just start romanticizing your life more.
Yeah, it's like things just get it's I mean, like, I don't know, I could have looked up the definition of what it means to for something to be romantic or to romanticize something before this episode. But I mean, it's sort of like, obviously, I wore my puffy sleeve shirt because I was like, ooh, let me romanticize this podcast with a puffy sleeve shirt. But I think that that's another thing, is like everybody has a different idea of what it means to to have a romantic experience or to experience life romantically. And so I think that's what's cool, is that it does come down to like, how do you want that to feel? Which is another point that I think we had talked about, is like literally just asking yourself how you want to feel every day. And, you know, and also asking like, okay, the stuff that I'm currently spending my time doing, how does that stuff make me feel? And is that how I want to feel or no? And for me, it's always like, no, I'm spending my time scrolling social media and it's making me feel insecure and shitty, you know? Like,
Yes, that was one of the exercises because literally when I had started to feel like I wasn't engaging with my life, I literally Googled how to engage more with your life. And one of the exercises I did was like hour by hour inventory of how I spent my day.
wow.
And when I looked at that afterwards, I was like, oh, holy shit, this clearly is not contributing to how I want to feel every day. So no wonder I don't feel like I'm engaging with my life or romanticizing my life. So I think honestly, like, it's a tedious exercise to do, but it could be worth it just for one day. Like, just write down how you spend your time. And I think for me, I noticed that like I was just like sitting on the couch watching TV, scrolling social media, like browsing online, shopping online, and you
Yeah.
know, I think we were raised in like a very creative family, and I was like, not that I have to spend every waking moment doing something creative, but I felt like I was wasting my talents and my potential. And so that's just something that I feel like I should do that like quarterly just to maybe recalibrate.
Yeah. Oh my god, totally. I think that's so I give you so much credit for actually following through and doing that exercise, because what I would do is read that advice and be like, "Oh, cool, I'll do that." And then I would like not really write it down. I would just like make a mental note so I could like make excuses to myself, because I know how I'm spending my time. I'm being a
Yeah.
piece of shit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like I know better. And so that's what's so, but it's cool that you were like, all right, I'm going to do this and I'm going to write it down. And then I think another thing that you had mentioned in the post, which I think is super crucial, is that when you noticed that you were doing stuff that didn't make you feel good, you didn't beat yourself up about it. Like you acknowledge that that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we don't need to shame ourselves. Like this exercise is to improve the way we feel, not make ourselves feel even shittier about ourselves. So like it's normal to waste time doing shit that doesn't matter. Like that's normal.
Yeah.
People do it all the time, but I think being self-aware, not shaming yourself and choosing something else to do, and it doesn't have to be productive, but choosing something else to do with your time that does make you feel better, is what matters.
Yes. And the idea of choosing, remembering that you can choose. I think that is just one of those things that for some reason we forget. Like, obviously there are so many things in our lives that we can't change no matter who we are, but there are a lot of things that are in our control. And whatever, it's like one of those stupid classroom posters, but it's like, you know you can control your attitude or whatever, like those posters about like what is it, like you can only control, like you can control how you react to something, or you can control your attitude towards something. And it's sort of like, dude, okay, like it's like you said, sometimes I feel like that stuff can lean into toxic positivity, because it's really important to acknowledge our feelings and to allow ourselves to feel how we feel. But I also think it's important to say, okay, how do I want to feel? Well, I get to choose to do something different and see if that helps me feel different. Like it's a choice, and but I have to take action to fix it. I can't just hope that one day scrolling social media and ignoring things that are actually important to me will suddenly make me feel great. It's like, no, it's not making me feel great, and I have to do something about it. And that's I think that's so cool that you went through that exercise. And then what kind of changes did you make that you felt like made a difference?
I think for me, it's like I didn't necessarily delete social media and TV time out of my schedule. I was just more intentional about when I was doing it. And so I could even like schedule in social media time. So, like, okay, I can look at my phone from 10 on social media from 10 to 10:20, and then I can pick it up again at night before bed from, 8 to 8:30. And if I want to watch a show, I can spend like an hour watching a show at night, but kind of being intentional about when I'm doing those so-called lazier things. Because obviously like we're still going to do those things. I'm not going to be someone who like gets rid of a television or like deletes my social media. I'm just not that kind of person, but I think being
Yeah.
intentional about when I spend that time. And so for the rest of the time, I think, you know, definitely being creative, writing down a list of options of things I can do is something that really helps me. I have a note in my phone of like, okay, when I have free time, here's some things I like to do that bring me joy or kind of put me in that flow mode, like sewing, drawing in Procreate, making collages, things like that. And I have a list in my phone. So I'm not just sitting around like, I have 3 hours of free time. What should I do with that? And
Yeah.
if I can't think of something, I'm just going to open up Instagram. So I kind of have
Right.
like a list for myself. How about you?
I love that. I love that you gave yourself like just a cheat sheet almost of like, here's the stuff that, make a list of things that you could do, with your free time that right now in this moment, while you're thinking about wanting to romanticize your life more, you want to do, like that. I need to do that. I need to be, because sometimes just having that concrete thing written down in your phone, in your notebook, whatever, makes all the difference. Putting it into words, instead of just having it float around with all the other crazy shit in your head. Honestly, I really need to do a better job of that. Like, I am not great about putting things into words sometimes, which is weird as a songwriter and like a writer, that's something I avoid, because I think I know that like once it's written down, then I have to like, I can't ignore it. And it's like the self-sabotage thing where I'm like, I know I want to engage more with my life, I know I want to romanticize my life more, but I know that if I sort of put it in writing, then I have to really do it and that I'm on the hook. And so I love that idea and I really want to adopt it. I tend to just go with the flow a lot of times. And this is like so mundane, but I feel like if Brett wants to watch a show and I don't really care about that show, I have such a hard time just being like, I could just go in my office and work on my painting, or, go listen to a French podcast because, he doesn't want to listen to a French podcast. Like, and it's funny because I feel like you and Lee are good about being like, I kind of want to do this for me and you kind of want to do this for you. And you guys, I feel like, do a better job of that. I tend to think the whole family has to do the same thing all the time. And then I resent him for wanting to watch a show that I don't want to watch. And it's like, I have a choice. I don't have to watch the show.
Yeah, no, it's really funny because he's better about that than I am, but I do think we are pretty independent. I mean, my cousin and her husband, like, sometimes they'll just call us like roommates because, like, it's
So
not like
funny.
we, like, during the workday, like, we don't eat lunch together. I mean, I don't think a lot of people do
Oh, we
that,
don't
but
either.
like, no, but I do feel like we are pretty good at doing our own thing and not feeling bad about it. I will say, like, I have gotten into some of the things that he's interested in that I didn't think I would be interested in, like, some World War II movies and stuff like that,
Sure.
which I never would have chosen on my own. But I'm also like, okay, I can't watch one every weekend. And so I'm going to
Sure.
go in my room and draw or something. But I do think that like I could do a little bit better with that. But I do feel like our family, we grew up and we did do a lot of things together.
Yeah.
So I think like just finding that balance, what's comfortable for your relationship and what feels good to you is, what matters.
Totally. I think it's different for everybody, but I think it's a good lesson, and it is it's a healthy thing, I think, to both, because yeah, Brett and I have different ideas in some senses of what it means to like romanticize our life or our weekend, um and then in other ways we have a very similar idea. So it's like, it's just about, have you seen that uh tweet, or I don't even know what it's called anymore, that that post about about where somebody's like, if you say in any meeting it's just about finding that balance, everyone will always agree. And it's like, it's so funny, but it's so true, because it really is like, that's what so much of life is about. Like, I think romanticizing your life is totally about finding a healthy balance. And relationships, it can make a relationship more romantic if both people have things that they like to do that sort of belong to them, that aren't necessarily involving the other person. And families can, like, it can be a healthier vibe if everybody sort of has their own like interests and, things that they can engage with now and then. So I think that kind of leads into this other point that we talked about, which is just finishing the sentence, I want to be the kind of person who blank. And yeah, and not, obviously, like, I want to be the kind of person who wins the lottery. Like, okay, obviously, but it's kind of more about, like, it could be a little thing, like, I want to be the kind of person who lights a candle and does a face mask, when I take a bath once a week. I want to do that. Or it could be like something deeper, like, I want to be the kind of person who FaceTimes my friends on the phone more, but that's kind of like a sentence that I've used sometimes that has helped me be like, I want to be the kind of person who wears more colorful, eclectic things, even if it's just to work from home. And I started doing it and I felt better.
Yes, absolutely. That's one thing that I definitely need to improve on because right now I'm freelancing. I don't have any face to face meetings. And so it's really easy to wear the same thing every day. And I know that when I don't do that and I actually look decent, I feel a lot better about myself, but it's just not natural to me. So I think there are so many things that could fill in that blank of I want to be the kind of person who blank. And I think,
Yeah,
your point is you can be that person rather than saying I'm just like not like that. I don't
sure.
do that. And it's like, yeah, I mean that maybe isn't your natural instinct, but we can be intentional about the things we do.
Yeah, and you don't have to be that person all the time. Like the other day, it was sparking joy for me to wear leggings and a giant t-shirt cuz I was bloated as fuck. And it's like, you know what? Like it's totally about like it's totally about that balance, right? Like it is. It's
Yes.
and so, one day you might want to be the kind of person who dresses up to work from home, and then another day you want to be the kind of person who gives yourself the grace and the space to look like shit and feel great about yourself all the same, right?
A
Like,
1000%.
I love it. Okay, and then the last idea that we talked about that I think is central to romanticizing your life is this idea of if you can't get out of it, get into it, which is not my quote. That is, I believe, directly from that book, The Happiness Project, which I think the author is Gretchen something.
Gretchen
I'll
Rubin.
Gretchen Rubin. Yes, she's
Yes.
great. And I love this idea because and it's really really hard to do for me, but it's basically about like if you have to do the laundry or you have to do the dishes, like you can't get out of it. You can't let the dishes pile up in your sink for a week or you're going to feel like a sick piece of shit. You're an adult, you got to do your dishes. Like try to get into it. Get like maybe get a fun, you know, organic cool, nice smelling dish soap that, or like get a pretty ceramic soap pump thing to put your Dawn. Like I put my Dawn dish soap into like it was just like a marble thing from Home Goods, but it like really elevated my experience of doing the dishes, because now I don't have to look at like the plastic thing with the Dawn, which is a color blue that doesn't go with my decor every day on the counter. And so I was like, okay, how can I get into this a little more? Like, do you feel like that is something that helps you romanticize your life to like take that perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely like the dishes for me. It's like my least favorite thing to do. Like I don't mind doing the laundry, I don't mind vacuuming. It's just I don't know why I just don't like doing the dishes. And so definitely I'll put on a playlist or have like friends in the background, friends on in the background, the show.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
but yes, it definitely helps things go by more quickly and it helps it not feel so mundane. And I think that there's a lot of ways that that manifests in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it definitely goes with the other ideas that we've talked about of like being in the present and, you know, being grateful and like whatever. And, obviously, there's certain things in life that just are mundane. Like it's mundane to do the dishes, it's not really that fun. But if you can't get out of it, try to get into it. Try to find a way to be like, oh, I can catch up on, an episode of Friends or my favorite podcast, or if you have a friend who you want to just casually catch up with who doesn't care that you're also doing the dishes at the same time and that works, cool, you can catch up with that friend or like whatever, I think that I'm trying really hard to do a better job of getting into the things I can't get out of. Even like I had jury duty for the first time this year. Like I've had it before, but they haven't needed me to come in. And I was so mad because it was the week after we got back from Italy. And so I was like super jet lagged and
That's right.
so out of it. And like, it's not, no one is like, I mean, maybe somebody who's like super interested, and that's really cool, but most people are not like amped to go do jury duty because you just sit around all day and it's like depressing fluorescent lighting and it just sucks. And but I was like, I can't get out of this or I'm gonna like get in trouble with the law, so I should bring a great book and and make this, because I've been wanting to read more and I just never do. And so it was great. I actually like finished like a fourth of a long book that I really, really wanted to read for a long time. And so I think that felt like a win in the sense that, you know, I made that experience just a little bit more romantic than it would have otherwise been.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when mom was on jury duty for weeks, she like made good friends. And I'm like, some people would be like, I don't want to, this is taking up so much of my time. Like, I have a life to live. And like the way that she, obviously, it wasn't like a romanticized situation, but made the best of it, I
Yeah.
guess, in some way, was like she made good friends and she got to know people and talk to them. And I think there are a lot of situations, where that could make sense. So I guess I feel like the four ways I think we touched on to romanticize your life were going out of our way to notice the little things, asking ourselves how we want to feel every day, and maybe taking some inventory of how we're spending our time. The third thing we mentioned was finishing the sentence, I want to be the kind of person who blank.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, which we just chatted about, was, the idea from the Happiness Project, which is if you can't get out of it, get into it. So I feel like that, I feel like that pretty much covers at least the things that I'm trying to do right now. Do you feel like there's anything else we haven't touched on?
No, I think that's a perfect recap. Those 4 points, I think, are the things that really helped us both think through this and think differently about it. And so, because we kind of came up with these 4 prompts, these 4 things over the course of this conversation, we decided to make a free downloadable worksheet for you guys. So you can head to the link in our description to get your free PDF worksheet, little journaling prompts for how to better romanticize your life. And let us know in the comments what you end up coming up with, because as we know, this totally looks different for everyone. So I'm excited to hear what everybody else's idea of romanticizing your life looks like. It makes me excited to try to sprinkle a little bit more romance into my season.
Yeah, and it makes you excited to wake up every day,
Yeah.
thinking about, oh, what are the things I'm going to see today? What are some other ways that I can make this day more special? And so I feel like I need to constantly remind myself of it. I would definitely love to have a worksheet that I could go back to and tuck it in my journal and look at the things that I need to remember, the values that are important to me. So,
Yeah, I think this is a conversation everyone can relate to in some way or another. We all want to feel more engaged with our life on a daily basis, and like we are romanticizing our lives. So we'd love to hear from our community. Like, let us know in the comments how you feel like you romanticize your life and what do you think that means to you, to romanticize your life. We'd love to put a list together. I think there's so many things that this means to so many different people, which is what makes it really cool and a great conversation overall. So thank you guys so much for all your support for this podcast so far. It's been really gratifying to hear your comments and like to hear that you connect with these conversations. It really is so meaningful to us. So thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more fun conversations soon and videos all about designing your life and designing your home. We're having so much fun with this channel. So we really appreciate your support. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Thanks so much.